Thank you, Bob. Good morning, everybody. And thank you to Lance. As far as we're concerned, this wouldn't have happened without the support of Stillwell Partners today. And Bob, this seminar wouldn't have happened without Fast Company's support and generosity of spirit. So thank you. I am Kathleen Saxton, the founder of the Lighthouse Company, and we make it our business every day to know and represent the best talent in the media and the advertising business. To echo Pareto's principle, we very much believe in the vital few. To extend that theory that actually 80% of success of a business comes from 20% of the people, the talent. Talent and the eternal search for it, the despair of losing it, the impact of having it, and what we call the collectively here to talk about it is what the Lighthouse was set up to deliver. We say that we create victorious partnerships, super teams, winning teams. It gets me out of bed every morning and it keeps me awake every night. And by the end of this session today, I very much hope that all of you will think about talent as high on your agenda as no doubt your social media strategy has suddenly become. Why? Because recruitment and nurturing and retention of talent is Madison Avenue and in fact Charlotte Street's #1 challenge today. And finally, we're going to really talk about it. I say really because for the past 5 years I've been flying over from London to Adweek conferences, and I've watched the great and the good talk a lot about talent being at the heart of the agency and people being our business, but I've heard very little substance, and I certainly haven't seen any master plan. In fact, when I initially suggested we should create and curate a session dedicated to the challenge of talent and what it increasingly brings to our concerns, we were suggested that maybe we should do a separate HR sideshow. And very quickly, once we'd shared some evidence with Matt Schechner, who we love and adore, he had the foresight to agree that talent needed to be front and centre, and so finally here we are today. Let me give you some facts. Just over a year ago, the Lighthouse Company undertook a survey for the top 200 CEOs for the advertising industry and asked them how the impact of the economic meltdown, the rise of procurement as a selector for creative talent, and the ever-decreasing tenure of CMOs was affecting their desire to remain within the advertising industry. Shockingly, 34% of leaders said they had given serious thought to actually leaving and deserting the industry altogether in the last 12 months. And the number remained as high when we undertook the survey again in February of this year. It was interesting to see that lack of charismatic global leadership, lack of courageous vision, lack of autonomy, delays in executing an agreed corporate strategy, and the growing financial and operational constraints that was brought around by the big 6 networks, particularly for the agencies, were all cited as the greatest frustrations of those operating businesses within the industry. It seems that the opportunity to truly be allowed to lead is diminishing, and this is naturally resulting in a loss of motivation, happiness, and fulfillment amongst the leadership talent. We all know that in the end, leadership is personal. It is about personal commitment, personal promises, personal relationships. Winning teams are about human connection, and it is so often who it is you're working for as an individual and how we are inspired by those individuals that keep us motivated and focused. For many years, charismatic leaders drove the business, people like Leah Burnett, Mary Wells, Bill Bernbach, David Ogilvy, I could go on. Today, the big agency industry, with Bob Greenberg being a notable exception, are more often led by accountants or business folk who are personally ambitious, but lead either not at all or by fear versus inspiration. Are men like Sir Martin or John Wren really leaders, or are they rulers? And there is a huge difference between the two. Is it any wonder there's been an increase in the number of startups and breakaways in the last year? In London alone in the last month, 3 leading CEOs and ECDs have resigned from major agencies to find fresh air of their own. At the other end, universities are citing that technology and engineering businesses are attracting core talent where once advertising was the desired home of the gifted. Talent within the advertising industry needs a major rethink, and in the next 90 minutes, we'll discuss with academics, a true luminary, Hollywood and sports agents, and the creative geniuses of our time what can be done. There are many questions and many angles. Does it matter that in 2011, the vast majority of agency employees are trained off a business model which no longer exists? Why are we getting it so wrong? Who is getting it right? And what are they doing differently? How fast does it have to change? Is it time that the top leaders and creatives within our business were personally managed? What we mean by that is represented by agents. to ensure they remain engaged, inspired, remunerated and interested in our business, that they are offered the variety, the excitement, the one-off projects, the intellectual and inspirational platforms that they now desire. We start with an academic point of view. Dr. Simon Lutterby is a qualified psychologist. He was born and bred in the US and now he resides in Oxford in the UK. All the best ones love London. And he lectures on happiness and how you can measure that and the changing model of professional loyalty. Following that will be Bob. We'll be interviewing Bob from RGA and talking about beliefs around talent, who they attract, what they do differently, what remains challenging and why it has been so successful. We then will move on to an esteemed panel made up of Phil Ramone, legendary Grammy-winning producer, George Pine, IMG, Brian Stern from Brillstein Entertainment Partners, Jonathan Adelman from Paradigm, and Kerry Okawa from Warner Music, to give an insight into how other industries manage creative talent, how they've changed their approach in recent years and have had to, and what we can learn and what we think about the advantages and disadvantages of talent representation and whether it may well work in the advertising and media, all moderated by Sean Sachs. And finally, Danielle Sachs from Fast Company will discuss with industry geniuses, and let's face it, the industry heartthrobs, Dave Droger and Jerry Graff, how they now see the world and whether Dr. Simon or indeed Sir Bob and the talent agents, what they have said will shape the way we think about approaching, attracting and managing talent going forward. So let's start with some happiness. Please welcome Dr. Simon Lutterby.